Good morning, David Moore, Equity Advantage, and I am so happy to be once again here with my buddy Robert Smith, Bob Smith. Actually, Robert gets mad when I call him Robert. So,
Begins with a B, ends with a B.
Yeah. Anyway, Bob Smith, Peregrine Private Capital, and I guess I just sort of want to start off by saying that I heard a statement, I don't know, probably a few months ago talking about lies are loud, right? And we've had a whole redefinition or redefining of the word recession. And I know we did a video probably a year or so ago where people were making a comment about you getting a little excited about the situation. But I think that one of my mentors, a guy named Ron Stash, actually, and he used to always talk about when you're buying something, answer three questions: what am I going to make? How am I going to make it? When am I going to make it? But the idea is don't look at something the way it is today, but what you can do with it, and think about where you're going to be in 2, 5, or 10 years from now. So, with that said, I think we got to really sort of row our way back down to that recession word and a lot of the indicators that we're seeing right now. And I know you've got some feelings on this topic. So, Bob, reel them in.
Reel them in. We're prescient from the standpoint that we have been warning people, warning CRE investors for quite some time now regarding the inevitability of recession. And with the economy growing at 1% last quarter, it's not a question of if a recession arrives, it's simply when and how bad it's going to be. And it's a direct result of the Fed rate hikes and the current administration, or Biden administration's regulatory assault on business in America, which is something like 500% greater than his Democratic predecessor, Barack Obama. So with much higher interest rates and a much more hostile environment towards business, there's a very, very strong likelihood that the Biden recession will arrive in the second half of 2023. And it's going to be particularly hard on commercial real estate because you've got something like $1.5 trillion worth of office and retail properties that have loans maturing in the next 18 to 24 months. And these loans are going to be maturing at a time when rates are much, much higher and occupancies much, much lower. And that is going to significantly impact valuations of all those properties. And it's going to saddle the lenders with huge losses. By way of example, the Union Bank building in San Francisco, which is in the heart of the financial district on California Street, just went on market. And this was valued at something like $300 million in 2019 pre-COVID, and they're expecting bids to come in around $60 million. That's an 85% valuation loss in 4 years. And albeit that's an extreme example because it's San Francisco, it's tech capital, and downtown's been very, very degraded from a lifestyle standpoint, as have all progressively governed West Coast cities. But it is illustrative of the value loss that's going to occur in CRE, focused primarily in office and retail. And you can't have that amount of money or that kind of wealth simply go poof, disappear and go to money heaven, never to come back again without having significant impact on all asset valuations and the lending environment. And the lending environment, as everyone knows, is already frigid because the primary lending mechanism or vehicle for commercial real estate historically has been regional banks. which with Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, First Republic, those are all regional banks. So the banks that historically have been the financing conduits for commercial real estate are under tremendous stress at this point. So it's going to take an already frigid lending environment and probably turn it polar. And that is going to impact commercial real estate valuations specifically and all other asset valuations generally. And, in anticipation of that, we've been telling investors for quite some time now that they have to be as defensive as possible in terms of that handful of commercial real estate types that usually do well, come hell or high water. Things like storage, senior living, storage, obviously, the demand drivers, death, divorce, downsizing, dislocation all go up when the economy goes down. Senior living is driven by the demand for senior living is driven by the inexorability of the aging process, and whether the economy is up, down, or sideways, we all get a little bit older every day, and so it's unfortunately there's some bad stuff coming, and the powers that be keep trying to paper this over this. And I think, it's largely politically motivated. They, with these successive regional bank failures and yelling on television, telling everybody, oh, everything's all right, everything's hunky-dory. They're just trying to paper over it long enough to get through the next election cycle. And I don't think they're probably going to make it.
It's a long ways.
It's a long ways.
Yeah, we got a lot of time, and I think all we have to do is look around. I mean, we're sitting here in a Class A office building. If we look out the window, there's a 4-story building next to us, and as I just pointed out to you, we've got one of the 4 floors is occupied.
Right.
And the stated occupancy rates are something that are far different than the true occupancy rates, and I think that's a lot of that shadow tenancy. People are still, maybe they closed up their offices, they're still making payments till the leases are gone. The leases are expired, and when that happens, and I think that a lot of times we've had people sort of migrate out of. I mean, think about the last decade. I mean, if you couldn't make money in real estate, I mean, you just weren't trying. I mean, it was just sort of a crazy time, right? But a lot of people, I mean, how many TV shows we have on flipping properties, right? And these are people that walked into the business from all different walks of life. I mean, it was too easy, and a lot of those people have moved from that residential stuff as pressure on that market into bigger things, and they're really, I think, ill-prepared to manage them in a recessionary time, especially when you've got, as you mentioned, the fact that those loans will come due, and just the fact that the interest rates are different on those loans would normally be a big enough problem to force maybe a sale. But now you've got a situation where you've got occupancy rates on commercial stuff that have evaporated, and you've got those interest rates. So it'll be a very entertaining time, I think. And my concern is I just want to see some liquidity in the marketplace. That's the thing that scares me. If we look at the crash last time, it was a total stop where you couldn't buy or sell anything, refi it, even though people thought maybe you could force a refi or sale in a market where it just wasn't possible. So, I think that we all have to look with every up and down. I mean, my dad always used to say, you got to find the opportunity, right? With change comes opportunity. So you really got to look at how you're going to be working forward and stuff. I know we had a client probably a couple months ago working with you, and his comment was purely he was not concerned about his ROI on it. He just wanted preservation of capital. Is that something that you're seeing people come to you more and more with?
I think they're more. We've been telling people for quite some time that the party's over. And even though it took the Fed a long time, too long, to take the punch bowl away, and that's why interest rates had to go up so far, so fast, because their action was tardy. Okay? And in light of that, we've been telling people that you have to turn off the how much more money can I make switch and turn on the how can I keep the money I've made switch. And I think a lot of people, most people don't like to deal with unpleasant news. And so a lot of folks chose to whistle past the graveyard, if you will. But with these bank failures, it's getting harder and harder to ignore. So a long-winded answer to your question is yes. I think the realization, even with retail investors in CRE, is now dawning that I got to hold on to the money I've made. And if I do that through the down cycle we're currently in, then I'll be well served. And that's something that, unfortunately, I don't think is talked about enough. Is real estate historically it's a cyclical asset class, meaning it goes up in value as interest rates go down, and it has a tendency to go down in value when interest rates go up. And there's a great historicality to that, if you will. But again, coming out of over a decade of zero interest rates, you've got all these young people, young professionals in the real estate industry and investors who are programmed to think that real estate never does anything but go up. And that's simply not true. It's a cyclical asset type, and we are in the down cycle now. I don't know how long the down cycle will last. I don't know how bad it will get, but because we're there, you as an investor need to be as defensive as you possibly can to hold on to what money you've got, so you're in a position to take advantage of the next upcycle when it does occur.
So it's sort of interesting. I've got, and you knew him, I guess I should say, my good friend Bob Nelson. We lost him last year, unfortunately. But he said real estate's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a get-rich-slowly but surely scheme with one golden rule, and that was not to be forced in a position where you had to sell in a recessionary period. So with that said, we're going to sign off. We'll be right back. Once again, David Moore, Equity Advantage, and Bob Smith, Peregrine Private Capital. Don't go away.